I don't. Hi, this is Daisycakes. I just wanted to say that I don't really. I'm sorry for it being so dark. Let me go ahead and make it a little brighter. Is that better? Okay. I'm not sure if this video might make it easier for her to pretend to be me, so I don't really want to do that either. But no, it's not showing headphones. Okay, so I just wanted to say I've been trying to figure out why someone could be doing this. I know this video might make it easier for her to pretend to be me, but we're gonna try to hope that that's not happening. Um, I'm not really sure why this is happening. I've been trying to think about it because it has to be some sort of display for a purpose. There has to be some sort of monetary benefit because these people aren't earning money, at least on the table. They're maybe earning money under the table, but they're sponging off of me for food, for items, for paper goods and things like that. They've got some of their own things to some extent, I guess, but not very many in this mock apartment. And uh, I have to ask myself why it's so important to them to seem like they are me, living in my apartment, and I mean, sometimes not doing some great things. So, like I said, I had neighbors that lived next to me, and across the street from him, there was another family, and they seemed really interested in sort of like my mail and everything. Sometimes mail would go missing, and other things would happen. They said that they had, one of them claimed to have some kind of sexual relationship with me, which did not exist. And one of them made a Facebook page for me that said El Patron Indico, which was not anything that I knew about or wanted, with my cell phone number as the identifying person. And it's very scary because I'm trying to figure this. And now they're making a room that looks kind of like my apartment, but also more of a room for kids. And I can't figure it out. So my daughter was injured in a car accident in 2017, I want to say, a long time ago. She was driving, and I mean, her husband now was driving, and she was rear-ended, and it caused her some damage to her collarbone shoulder area, and she had to go on. I guess she was getting, I don't know if she's getting money for that, but she got money for the accident. Okay, and then she went to live in Japan in 2021. The thing wasn't settled for a few years. He went into the army band in uh, probably around 2021. They bought a house. A few months later, he got assigned to Japan, and from Houston, and they've been living in Japan ever since, and they're still there as far as I know. I just called recently, and they were still there. So they should be coming up on their PCS dates. So, although we hope not, because evidently they're happy. I hope they have a baby now and all these things, but they've been gone out of the country for about 4 years now, and it's hard. Well, it's hard. 2 years, but it seems like that might be something to do with it, maybe, because it's also not their stuff, but stuff that we had in our family home that they seem to want to imitate, as well as things actually in my apartment, even though they're mostly trying to imitate my apartment. I don't get money from the government. I never have. My brother took my stimulus checks. I've never gotten any kind of tax. I haven't filed taxes in like 3 or 4 years because I didn't have enough income to file, and I haven't been a dependent to anybody on taxes. I haven't had any kind of issue with any kind of government problems. I haven't needed SNAP. I've never had a SNAP card in my life. I've never had food stamps or health insurance. I haven't had any health insurance since 2011, actually, which is really, 2010, which is really bad because I had the chance to go on Cobra, but Cobra was too expensive, and I just never got any health insurance, which in my situation is really, really stupid. Don't do that. But I did not, I did do that. I don't have any at all. So it's not that, right? And so I left my teaching job, but I didn't qualify for unemployment because I quit. And I left because my kids were acting up and I was needed at home. I left my subbing job. I didn't qualify for unemployment. I left a bookstore job, didn't really get unemployment for that. Left the restaurant jobs and didn't get unemployment. Left the work for rent job under the table, I guess, sort of, and didn't get unemployment. I really, my restaurant job was really weird. It was work. I had to work 20 to 30 hours a week for minimum wage. And then my tips went into that. I earned $5 an hour. And then my tips helped them adjust it to minimum wage. And then anything over that I could keep. But it was mostly not very much money, but it was a lot of fun working. I mean, I had a great working situation. I was really enjoying it. I wasn't really thinking about it very much, but they seemed to be limited to like $5 an hour. And I don't know why that was. I thought maybe that was some sort of scam, that not that they were pulling, but that someone was telling them to pull on me. Because when I got here, these families from my old town, these two families, there's the woman I used to work with, her family. There's the two neighbors' families. Okay, those three guys showed up here when I started working here, and moved here, and were sort of trying to talk to people about my job situation, like they had a say in it somehow. But as far as I know, none of them worked for the city or the state. They were just sort of being nosy, I guess. But somehow that might have something to do with it, because the man that attacked me is from that family. And one of the guys from DoorDash, it wasn't really a DoorDash, but I haven't been a dependent to anybody on taxes. I haven't had any kind of issue with any kind of government problems. I haven't needed SNAP. I've never had a SNAP card in my life. I've never had food stamps or health insurance. I haven't had any health insurance since 2011, actually, which is really, 2010, which is really bad because I had the chance to go on Cobra, but Cobra was too expensive, and I just never got any health insurance, which in my situation is really, really stupid. Don't do that. But I did do that. I don't have any at all. So, so it's not that, right? And so I left my teaching job, but I didn't qualify for unemployment because I quit. And I left because my kids were acting up and I was needed at home. I left my subbing job. I didn't qualify for unemployment. I left a bookstore job, didn't really get unemployment for that. Left the restaurant jobs and didn't get unemployment. Left the work for rent job under the table, I guess, sort of, and didn't get unemployment. I really, my restaurant job was really weird. It was work. I had to work 20 to 30 hours a week for minimum wage. And then my tips went into that. I earned $5 an hour. And then my tips helped them adjust it to minimum wage. And then anything over that I could keep. But it was mostly not very much money, but it was a lot of fun working. I mean, I had a great working situation. I was really enjoying it. I wasn't really thinking about it very much, but they seemed to be limited to like $5 an hour. And I don't know why that was. I thought maybe that was some sort of scam, that not that they were pulling, but that someone was telling them to pull on me. Because when I got here, these families from my old town, these two families, there's the woman I used to work with, her family. There's the two neighbors' families. Okay, those three guys showed up here when I started working here, and moved here and were sort of trying to talk to people about my job situation, like they had a say in it somehow. But as far as I know, none of them worked for the city or the state. They were just sort of being nosy, I guess. But somehow that might have something to do with it, because the man that attacked me is from that family. And one of the guys from DoorDash, it wasn't really a DoorDash driver that came to my door, told me I was working against the heat. And I don't know what that means. So it sounded really, that's my apartment complex. They don't like it when I'm recording. But anyway, he said, so you're working against the heat. And I was like, what? He's like, you're working against the heat. And I was like, no, I'm not working. Sorry, there's a bug on the wall. I have to come up. But they're working against the heat. I was like, no, I'm not working against the heat. I don't know what that means. So if you know what that means, please explain to me in the comments. I've always been a big supporter of the police. I'm kind of conservative. I don't really follow any particular, I don't really hate any ideology a lot, but I don't hate the police at all. So I love them. And I don't know what it would be, but I can't imagine. But see, I started telling that my daughter was might be in on this, and I just realized that they did cut off contact with me, which is, well, the one daughter, it was weird. She had some damage, a little bit. She had like a little bit of brain damage, but not much, in her head when she was in her accident, and she recovered from that fully, thank the Lord, and she's doing great. But she, at the time, she was a little off with her processing, and I had checked out a bunch of books from the library because they were moving, and so I was like, okay, what is going on? So, what is this feeling I have? Because I avoided empty nest the first time by moving up here, but it turns out that it waits for no person. So, I was very much impacted emotionally by them, but not enough to be disturbed or anything. I was just sad, but it's a little bit. So I checked out some books from the library, and on what to do if your child dies, because I wanted to see about grief, and I wanted just to get this. Like I'm very like in. I like to do things the right way the first time. I like to do them perfectly, and then I like to go on with life and adjust. It's very important to me to be well adjusted. So I don't really let anything that happens to me impact me for very long. So I went ahead and checked out these books. I found some really good ones, which I'll mention in another video probably, but maybe talk to Snowman too about this issue about grief. But I got some really good advice from these books, and so I was enjoying them. But my daughter, okay, so my one daughter, I checked them out under her name at the library, because you can do that with a guest, right? And then the next daughter, I found out about it from her, so third hand or second hand, and she was like, okay, what's going on? And I was like, well, it's like you've died to me in my heart, because I know you're moving away, and I know that you're going through all these changes, and I might not ever see you again. And so I feel kind of like bereft, So then she was like, she thought that I was saying you're dead to me. And so she kind of cut off contact with me for a little bit after that, which took a lot of explaining. And it's still kind of an issue in our relationship, which is, in a way, it's kind of ironic, because it means I did the right thing in checking out those books. But it's also sad, because she's my doppelganger and I just adore her. Okay? Which brings us to the point. So she looks like me, my daughter, the one that was injured. And it has fully recovered from her injuries, unless there's some sort of legal thing that I don't know about where it says that she hasn't. But as far as I can tell, she's almost 100% back to normal. And but she is also in Japan, so she's not here. And she received some sort of cash settlement, I guess, but her sizable cash settlement. But she's also probably, someone might be trying to get her money from the government since she's not here. And they might be stealing either my identity, her identity, or both to do it with, or some sort of insurance payments, because my USAA account was also locked down around this time, when I had this account since I was like 15. I love USAA. I'm a proud supporter of them. I've been an excited member of USAA for a long time. Not to give an advertisement, because I'm hardly their best customer, but or their finest representative, but still, I really like them. So I have always had a USA account, and I'm very proud of it. I haven't been able to get back into it since my mom died. So I hope that there's no fraud going on with that. But none of those things would necessitate 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 them pretending to be me visually through, pantomime or imitation or mocking or voiceovers, through images, through Zoom. None of it. And it also had to do with me applying for jobs. Those families did not want me to apply for any teaching jobs. They didn't seem to want me to apply to any state jobs, especially here in Nacogdoches and also in that old town. And they were very much involved in sort of stalking me intensely through the banks. I mean, it's hard to explain, but there's been a lot of interference from these families for no reason that I can see. So it has to be for some kind of benefit at this point, because I'm older and I have a new, career path. And as soon as I got this new career path, that family showed up and attacked me physically, like physically in my house. And I don't know what that means. They want me for some reason not to do this. And then not only that, but they try to interfere with my videos to make it seem like I can't do it well. When I can do it well, I just, for some reason, and they were trying to give me bad coding, because when you download video editing apps with bad coding, the video editing apps don't work. They're not the same. So, good job editing apps. But for me, I haven't done anything wrong. I've never been accused of doing anything wrong. I've never had any kind of investigation of doing anything wrong. I've never done anything wrong as far as those coding things go. I've never had any mental health coding. I've never had any kind of anything like that. And neither, to my knowledge, have my children. So my children have always been really high achievers, fine examples of daughters, and I've always been very proud of them in every way, except for that they went through some phases where they were kind of a little bit crooked, but only in the popular ways that there are to be crooked today. So I'm not sure what that means. And even if they were in on something like this, I wouldn't necessarily participate in it, so I'm not really sure what that would be. But they're bringing this mock apartment to my job right now, even though it's existed for some time. And I'm not sure why. If it has to do with adult protective services, because my mom was involved with adult protective services because of reports of her living situation back then. She wasn't living with me. But I have never been involved with adult protective services, child protective services, or any kind of social services like that. So I don't know what it could be. But if you have any ideas, I just wanted to say, before I get a bunch of suggestions, hopefully, about how it could be this or that or the other thing, just understand that it could just be felony stalking and not anything for gain at all. But that would be unlikely with these people. So let me know what your thoughts are if you think it's about. But just understand these things when you're making suggestions, so that we can, be efficient about the suggestions, because it's obviously something that's happening right this second, and I don't want to go too much longer without understanding none of it. And it also had to do with me applying for jobs. Those families did not want me to apply for any teaching jobs. They didn't seem to want me to apply to any state jobs, especially here in Nacogdoches and also in that old town. And they were very much involved in sort of stalking me intensely through the banks. I mean, it's hard to explain, but there's been a lot of interference from these families for no reason that I can see. So it has to be for some kind of benefit at this point, because I'm older and I have a new, career path. And as soon as I got this new career path, that family showed up and attacked me physically, like physically in my house. And I don't know what that means. They want me for some reason not to do this. And then not only that, but they try to interfere with my videos to make it seem like I can't do it well. When I can do it well, I just, for some reason, and they were trying to give me bad coding, because when you download video editing apps with bad coding, the video editing apps don't work. They're not the same. So, good job editing apps. But for me, I haven't done anything wrong. I've never been accused of doing anything wrong. I've never had any kind of investigation of doing anything wrong. I've never done anything wrong as far as those coding things go. I've never had any mental health coding. I've never had any kind of anything like that. And neither, to my knowledge, have my children. So, my children have always been really high achievers, fine examples of daughters, and I've always been very proud of them in every way, except for that they went through some phases where they were kind of a little bit crooked, but only in the popular ways that there are to be crooked today. So I'm not sure what that means. And even if they were in on something like this, I wouldn't necessarily participate in it, so I'm not really sure what that would be. But they're bringing this mock apartment to my job right now, even though it's existed for some time. And I'm not sure why. If it has to do with adult protective services, because my mom was involved with adult protective services because of reports of her living situation back then. She wasn't living with me. But I have never been involved with adult protective services, child protective services, or any kind of social services like that. So I don't know what it could be. But if you have any ideas, I just wanted to say, before I get a bunch of suggestions, hopefully, about how it could be this or that or the other thing, just understand that it could just be felony stalking and not anything for gain at all. But that would be unlikely with these people. So let me know what your thoughts are if you think it's about. But just understand these things when you're making suggestions so that we can, be efficient about the suggestions, because it's obviously something that's happening right this second. And I don't want to go too much longer without understanding what they're trying to gain from this, why it's so important to them to imitate me online and interfere with my videos, and why it has to do with me working specifically. It's very odd. Like they even go to my meetings when I go to recovery meetings. This one family, when I left, I sold my house in 2020. I sold my house in 2015, and I went to I had to find a place to live. So I was in a hotel at first because there was a flood at my house. We were repairing things and selling the house. And then I moved into a house in a town adjacent to my old town. But when I went online to look, those people had put malware on my devices, because it's a long story. But my neighbors had access to my Wi-Fi. And they put, the only ad I could find that was affordable was an ad with one of their relatives. I didn't know that, though, until I moved here to Nacogdoches. At the time, I had no idea. But it was the woman I used to work with, brother, that I moved in with accidentally. Now, he seemed very nice, and his brother seemed very nice. But wherever I went, they would follow me. So when I went to my recovery meetings that I've been going to for years, at that time I'd been going there for at least over 10 years, the brother would follow me there and go in the meetings with me and like talk to people about me. And this is a recovery meeting that I've been going to when I got divorced in 2005, because it was 10 years earlier, because it was far away from my place of business, and I didn't want my workmates to know that I was, going to recovery. So it was really important to keep it separate from my home life. That's why I drove almost 100 miles, between 50 and 100 miles, depending on where I was living at the time, to get to these meetings. So I enjoy the recovery community in the bigger town that we lived near, and I really wanted to keep it separate from my life, like my going to the grocery store, my going to the churches, even though I didn't go to church, but my going to like markets and stores and, things. I wanted it to be separate. So anyway, that was difficult. So they followed me around there, right? So when I moved up here, they followed me here too. Legit. They legit followed me here. And when I went to work for the restaurants, they would come in and talk to the people in the restaurants every new job I get, right? So this job, I don't think there's a way for them to do that, although I don't know if they've contacted Snowman, but there's not a way for them to do that. So I thought maybe they were just maligning me this way, like trying to change my videos and put in splice footage of former frames so that they were like looping the video instead of letting it play normally. They were doing things like this, like pulling down things and trying to swipe up and get the information on the videos in the frame, and they were trying to get my email in the frame and even my phone number sometimes, like crazy things like that. And it wasn't me doing it, so I had to, like I said, replace all of my equipment, change my email, even change my phone number, and they still are insisting on being on my stuff as much as possible, although I think I mostly kicked them off now. So now I'm trying to go back through and repair all those videos that were looped and damaged, and hopefully refilm in some kind of better way. But I wanted you to see the authentic videos, even though they're a little messed up by the stalking, because I wanted you to know what was happening in real time. So I don't know why they're doing this at all. I really don't. I'm straight. I'm 1/4 black. I'm older. I'm single. I've been single since I got divorced in 2005, and I immediately, my ex-husband was gone for a year. I immediately got back together with him because we had kids that were 5 and 7, very little, and we stayed together for the next 7 years, common law, married, and then we got divorced again in 2012. And I didn't date after 2012. I had a male friend that I did things with here in Nacogdoches for a little while that I really liked, and then I keep looking over here because there's something going on inside. But then I haven't dated since then because I wanted my kids to see me as a woman that likes herself, that's confident in her life, and I didn't want to bring home a lot of different guys for them to look at. So I've been very, very, very choosy in all ways. So, but there's no, and I did, if I did anything, it was when they weren't at home, basically, because they spent a month every year with their dad, and they were gone 3 weekends out of the month. So, but I had full physical and legal custody of them almost all 18 years of their life, basically. But, we were divorced when they were 5 and 7. So all of those years for sure. And they lived with me as a primary custodian all of that time until my daughter. And then after 18, my daughter still lived with me, both of them. And well, one of them, until she had to leave because she was having trouble being a good example. She had, I should say this, even though it's not, my daughter is a great person. She's a fantastic example of a human. But just in case it has something to do with this, I have to mention it, okay? So my daughter had, one day I was going through their room. I don't ever go through their stuff, but I did all the chores in the house. My kids never had a list of chores to do or anything special to do. And I went in her room and I looked through her. I walked past a backpack like 2 or 3 times. It was actually in my other daughter's room, but I don't know that it was hers. Okay. So I kind of talk about it for both of them. But I went in and I saw a backpack that I hadn't really seen before, and I looked in it, and it had like 300 oxycodone pills in it, tramadol pills, I guess they are. And I thought, well, that's weird, because that was really upsetting, because that's enough to kill me and her sister. And I didn't know if they were depressed or why they had those. They hadn't been in any pain. My daughter had a slight injury to her knee, but she hadn't required surgery or anything. And she wore a brace for like 3 years, but she had pills for that from her dad. And it wasn't these were in a baggie. These were in like 3 big baggies of pills. So after that, I started going through their rooms about once a month or so, once a week, off and on, depending on how they were acting. And I was very respectful. I didn't make a big deal out of it, but I definitely made sure to pay more attention, because up until then they hadn't had any kind of surveillance whatsoever from me. So let's see, what else? Oh, so when my daughter turned, so my daughter didn't like that very much. Now, I never even mentioned the pills to them. You should know I took them to a doctor, a friend of mine, and something bad happened with them after, but I'll go into that later. But, or she's like a ex-friend now. But, so then my daughter, grew up. She was about 17 then at that time when that pill thing happened. And she had a boyfriend. They got more serious. So she started spending more time at his house. When she turned 18, I told her, you can do what you want. The only thing I ask is that if you're living here still, because she's still in high school, I said, if you come home, it needs to be 12:30 on a school night, 12:30 to 1 o'clock on a school night, and like 2 o'clock on the weekends, 2 a.m. So, which is the rules I kind of had when I was her age. So then she went ahead and lived that way. She did a great job. She's super responsible. She's like the best kid ever. Okay. These are anomalies that we're talking about. Tiny little anomalies. Tiny little. So, then when she was in March of her senior year, so she'd already been 18 since September, so a good long time. She came home at like 1:45 in the morning, like 2 or 3 times. And I said, okay, look, this is not okay because your sister's only 15 and, well, 16, and she's sleeping right there. And because her bedroom was right next to the front door. So I was like, I appreciate you not trying to get her to let you in her window or anything, but you're going to have to either come home, stay there wherever you're at when it's that time of the day or at night, or go to your dad's house. I was like, because we need to keep things normal for our blank, for the baby sister. Well, she hasn't, I don't think I've ever said no to her before really that much. I don't think I've ever stood up to her at all in any way, shape, or form. And she already didn't like me a whole lot, unfortunately, even though I love her and I've always loved her. I love both my kids with my whole heart 100% of the time. But she already disliked me because her dad had done this whole alienation campaign against me in the divorce, because he was upset about not having custody of them. And when they turned 14, they had the chance to go live with him, but they both chose to stay living with me because they would have had to change high schools. They didn't want to do that, and they really did like the way I was treating them. So I don't know. But anyway, he did this whole alienation campaign, and he did a smear campaign and really kind of filled their heads with bad ideas about me, and it was very difficult. So they don't speak to me today because of that, but I'm very confident that I did the right thing with them, and I'd had a great time being their parent. I wouldn't have done anything differently, really, through the whole thing. So then, so she came home after that, and I think it was on instructions from somebody that was trying to get her to go live with her dad anyway. But she came home at like 2 o'clock, 2:30 in the morning. And she's like, I'm sorry, I fell asleep. I just need to come in. I said, no, I'm sorry, you can't. I told you that you would have to go. I told you 3 things that you could do. I was like, you could sleep in my car, because I had a really super nice car and it was in the front driveway. I was like, you can sleep in the car until like 5:30 in the morning. So that's only 3 more hours. I was like, you can go back to where you came from, to your boyfriend's house, or you can go to your dad's house and stay. So she chose to go to her dad's house and stay. And she stayed there all night. So, and then she didn't come back to my house after that, but we were still cordial with each other fairly much. But she always kind of hated me after that. And when I moved here to Nacogdoches to be with them, because not to live with them, but to go to their events and their college, they had recitals and auditions and concerts and plays, operas, and football games, and all involving them performing all the time. And so I didn't have money to go back and forth, so I went ahead and moved up here to work. And that is when the families that I was living with freaked out and sent people up here. And those are the people that attacked me. But they don't really have anything to do with my daughter. They're not related to any of my daughter's husbands. They don't have anything to do with any of my friends. It's just very inexplicable. It's evidently just stalking. But I've never been stalked before. I don't really think I'm stalkable, but evidently I am. I think I'm on a list of like gullible people or something. So I tried really hard to do the right thing by my kids, and I think that I did. By and large, they're both employed and successful, and their mothers their wives, and I'm really super proud of them. And they're following my footsteps in different ways. They're representing both their dad and I very well. There's no reason to feel like, anyone needs to malign them in any way, but there is a tiny chance that they may be involved in this and that it might be for some kind of financial gain. So I thought I would just make this video because I don't know why people keep trying to hurt me for telling my truth, because it is true. It's my truth, and it really is true, and people have seen it, can back me up. I mean, this apartment really exists. This woman's really trying to be me, and I have different videos now of her like modifying my voice and everything. It's really crazy, and I don't know what's going on. So, like I said, I don't have any mental health diagnoses. I don't have any kind of thing like that would be a problem for people. I'm just living my life. My ex-husband told me when we moved up here that the one way I could help the family, I have a master's degree in French from Vanderbilt University. I have a bachelor's degree in international relations from Trinity University. I worked as an elementary special ed teacher for almost 6 years, and I was a special ed aide for middle school for a year and a half before that, maybe 2 years. And I have subbed for at least 6 years in the public school system, but not regularly, like off and on. So, because raising my kids has always been my one pride and joy, and I've been really proud with how they turned out, honestly, because everybody's kids have issues, and my kids have really kind of surprised me with how well they do things. So, anything else that I need to tell you to make you understand? Oh, yeah. So, when I moved up here, my ex husband's always been kind of tacitly, verbally abusive to me, and kind of mentally abusive as well. But not in a way that he should be blamed for it, because this is his best raising, and he really gets a lot of this from his family, and even though I love his family still. So his when I moved up here, even though we've been divorced for we've been divorced for just a little bit at that time, the second time, he called me and he said, this is how you can help the girls. He's like, go up there and earn not much money, and then they can get money from the government from you for FAFSA, because it's like through the mother that the money is given, like the income is given through the custodial parent, and I was the custodial parent of record. And I wasn't earning money when they were in high school because they were acting out so much. I had to kind of I subbed with them in their high school, and I kind of like kept an eye on things, and I wanted to see their friends and see what kind of things were going on with all this other stuff happening. And so I've always devoted my life to them, and I figured I could have a career later, which I hope this might be, but I don't know if it's gonna work out. But anyway, this was what I was thinking. So he said, why don't you go up and do that? So I was thinking that maybe he called someone and said, hey, don't pay her very much money or something. I don't know what all that restaurant stuff was, but I loved working in the restaurants, and I wouldn't have minded if I wish we have restaurant reform here in Texas, where it's like minimum wage would be like $13 an hour. That would be so great for everyone. But I know a lot of restaurants couldn't afford it. There's a lot of great mom and pop food out there that would go out of business. So it's kind of sad. Everything's in flux right now as far as that goes, I guess. But I wondered, if that, I thought maybe you need to know that to understand things, because it's possible that maybe he acted in some way to keep me from earning a lot of money, because there's a divorced parents dad group in Texas, and especially in Central Texas. It's very powerful, and some of them don't like women winning in divorces, and I did sort of win the divorce. I got the girls, I got the house, I got a lump sum payment, I got child support. I did okay. So, but remember, that's not a retirement plan. That's only 18 years, and I didn't really have uh, anything built up once that ended. So, don't think that I was dancing on anybody's grave or anything. I was really happy to be able to do those things. And I felt like I was supporting him as well, because it's what he wanted for our family, is for me to raise the children. So, but he wasn't happy a lot of the time with the divorce situation in Texas, and I felt like maybe he was in some groups about that along those lines online, and I thought maybe that had something to do with it. I wasn't sure. So, but I don't know. I don't believe in conspiracy theories, but I thought it was weird that those people showed up here and that they also attacked me, because I just have my truth. It's just my truth about the situation. It's not like anything that you could always just remember when you're dealing with a person, whatever that person's impression of you is, isn't really something you can change except for in that moment. You can't intimidate them out of into having a different impression of you. You can't, and I can't do it either. There's people that don't like me. I can't go to them and say, but I'm so sweet, because they don't think so. And that's fine. There's a lot of people out there there's a few people out there that don't like me. And it's okay that they don't like me, because some of them are not mentally healthy, but some of them, are, and they just have their experience, which tainted their experience with me. Like their experiences with their family, reminding them of their moms or whatever, tainted their experience with me. So anyway, I just had to say that and upload it because I want to make sure that you understand that this really is kind of dangerous level stalking. It's not really a joke. It's not anything that I can explain. Um, uh, it's just, it's cost me a great deal of money. It's cost me a lot of my career impetus, and it's caused me to be very limited, and I'm not really sure why. It's like these people expected me to pay their way in some fashion that I don't even understand what happened with that. Like I know that um, they were I had storage units in my city here and my city there where my house was, because I had a 4-bedroom house. I had to move into a studio apartment, so I got storage, and they had been accessing my storage unit with the help of my brother for years. Well, not for years, for like 2 years before I realized it. And also here in Nacogdoches, the same families have been into my storage unit sort of off and on without me knowing it. So I don't really know what that's about. I don't know if they thought it was just an easy mark or what, but it's a woman I used to work with, and her brothers, so her maiden name brothers, her married name relatives, but less of those. And then the guy I used to live next to, and on his side, his dad's side, their relatives, and a couple of people on his mom's side as well. So, and then there's other people also that are hard to explain. And then the people here are related to those people. So I was shocked when I found that out, because I got a background check website, and I had to look up a couple people because I did not understand why all this was happening. And it turned out that they are like very closely related to these people. So I'm sad about it, because I really try to adjust and move on from situations. So I see each situation as separate in my life. And I didn't realize that there was so much overlap between them. But anyway, I thought I'd just say that because I didn't want you to think that there was something weird going on. The police aren't, it's not like the police are involved in the break-ins and the attack, but it's not like I can really tie things together for them. They may never understand the length at which these people have been a factor in my life, because I really didn't understand it either, and it sounds crazy, so I don't blame you for wondering. But no, I don't have any mental health conditions. I simply was a stay-at-home mom. I'm just an older single woman that sort of ended up in the situation that a lot of women end up with, but some of them end up really hurt. If this is for financial gain and they're trying to use me and I get in their way, I don't know what they're going to do, because I'm not really sure if they're going to come down and smear me and try to get me some weird coding, or limited in some fashion, or if they're going to want to use me for disability, for like physical disability, which I don't have, or if they want to use me for mental disability, which I don't have, or my daughters, or if they are trying to receive her payments that she was receiving before now that she's in Japan, or what. So I'm not really sure, but I thought I would just put all that out there because it's possible it has something to do with it. It seems too involved to just be kind of like a crazy, wacky plan, but it could just be a crazy woman that has mental illness that's sort of overly in my life. So I'm sorry about the blue light. It doesn't mean any kind of substance or affiliation. I don't like fluorescent lights, so I have colored bulbs at night. So anyway, I hope y'all have a good night, and I'm sorry to bother you. I just wanted to leave that here. Thanks.